Rise, my apprentice.
The war was over. The Empire had risen, and its iron grip tightened across the galaxy. On the remote moon of Malachor V, far from the bustling core worlds, a forgotten facility lay dormant. It was an old, unmarked cloning lab, one of many Palpatine had scattered across the galaxy during his rise to power. This one, however, was special, built in secret, even from the Emperor's closest advisors. Here, Palpatine pursued one of his most ambitious projects, the creation of enhanced, Force-sensitive beings that could be used as weapons. Yet every experiment ended in failure. The clones that emerged from the vats were not like the disciplined soldiers of the Grand Army of the Republic. They were grotesque, deformed, their minds shattered by the process meant to grant them power. They were unstable, dangerous, and worst of all, they were aware of their suffering. Unable to control them, Palpatine ordered the facility to be sealed, its failures left to rot in the dark. Years later, a group of scavengers received a tip about a hidden Imperial research facility on Malachor V. They were seasoned, having raided dozens of abandoned outposts, and knew there was a high chance of finding valuable tech and weapons to sell on the black market. The promise of treasure was enough to make them ignore the stories. Whispers of a cursed moon, where machines still hummed, and shadows moved in the dark. They landed on the desolate surface of Malachor V under the cover of night. The facility was a massive cold structure, half buried beneath jagged rocks and twisted metal. It took hours to break through the ancient security locks, but finally, the heavy metal doors groaned open, revealing a darkened hallway stretching into the abyss. Flickering lights barely illuminated the path, casting eerie, shifting shadows along the walls. The deeper they ventured, the stronger the feeling of being watched. They found old data terminals, surgical equipment, and shattered tanks filled with viscous green liquid. The air was thick, almost suffocating, and there was a faint hum, a low, droning noise that seemed to come from all around them. But it was the echoes that unnerved them the most. The sound of footsteps, whispers, and the occasional distant scream. One of the scavengers, Rix, swore he saw a figure at the end of a corridor, just out of the light's reach. But when he called out, there was no answer, only silence. "We should go back," one of them said, his voice trembling. But greed got the better of the others. They pressed on, deeper into the heart of the facility. As they moved, they began to find signs of a struggle. Old bloodstains on the floor, claw marks along the walls, and broken doors that looked like they had been forced open from the inside. In the central lab, they found the cloning tanks. Most were empty, shattered, but a few still functioned, filled with murky green liquid. Inside that they could see figures, vague, indistinct shapes that floated unmoving. "Those are clones," Rix whispered, approaching one of the tanks. "They're still alive." They weren't supposed to be alive. The Empire's records stated that all experiments were terminated, the facility shut down. But as they stood there, staring at the dark silhouettes, one of the tanks began to drain. Green liquid spilled onto the floor, and the shape inside slowly began to move. A deformed hand pressed against the glass, followed by a grotesque, twisted face, its eyes wide and frantic, mouth opening in a silent scream. The scavengers stumbled back, horror washing over them as the tank door burst open, and the clone fell to the floor, twitching and convulsing. For a moment, it seemed dead. But then it rose, slowly, unsteadily. Its eyes locked onto Rix.
"Help me,"
it whispered, its voice distorted, echoing as if it came from deep within a cavern. The others drew their blasters. But before they could fire, the lights went out. In the pitch black, the whispers returned, louder, clearer.
"Help us, help us, kill us, help us, help us."
The lights flickered back on, and the lab was filled with them. Dozens of clones, their bodies twisted, bones jutting out at odd angles, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Some crawled along the floor, others stood hunched, their limbs contorted unnaturally. But all of them were staring at the scavengers, eyes full of pain and madness.
They weren't supposed to survive.
A voice echoed through the room, but it wasn't coming from the clones. It was deeper, darker, reverberating through the walls.
But they did, and now they're free.
Panic set in. The scavengers opened fire, blaster bolts cutting through the dark, but it was like shooting at ghosts. The clones moved erratically, dodging, twisting, disappearing into the shadows. One of the scavengers screamed as a hand reached out from the darkness, dragging him into the depths. His voice abruptly cut off. Rix ran, abandoning the others, sprinting down the hallway. The whispers growing louder, more frantic.
Help us. Kill us.
He reached the exit, slamming his fist against the control panel, but the door wouldn't budge. The facility's systems had locked down. Desperate, he turned back, only to see a lone figure standing at the end of the hallway. A clone, different from the others. Taller, more composed, with a thin smile on its lips.
You're not leaving.
It said. And as it stepped forward, the lights began to flicker again, revealing dozens more behind it.
No one ever leaves.
In the days that followed, no one heard from the scavengers. Their ship was found abandoned on the surface of Malachor 5, the engines still warm. A few brave souls ventured inside the facility to look for them, but all they found were empty halls and dark, quiet rooms. And the whispers. If you listen closely, you can still hear them, echoing through the halls, repeating the same haunting plea. Help us. Kill us.